Welcome back to Chai Chat. Once again, we're talking about India taking over the presidency of G20 and what is the way forward. What should they actually do? So thank you again for joining. What do you think needs, what would be the three things that he would, if achieved, would be a success? And what is the way where do you see it down the line?
I think I will name one. Then I'm going to hand it over. I'll take mine off the table first. I think it's developing the COP27 fund, taking that forward. I think that was a tremendous success. We've got to see that roll out. But if that can be then moved forward during, I think, his chairmanship at G20, then I think that would be a major success.
I think dealing with some of the trade barriers that are still there for companies that want to come into India would be a great thing to do, but also to look at the opportunities of sharing manufacturing. I mean, JCB, one of our biggest companies here in the UK, have manufacturing sites right across India. And of course, they're linked into the hydrogen cells. So, I mean, there's an opportunity for partnership with British companies, which will then lead to dealing with some of the climate change that he wants to deal with and he wants to tackle. So I think that sort of partnership approach, I would like to see more of that in the coming days. And I know that's a huge challenge, but I think that would be a real positive step.
There's a lot of made in India element there that he wants to build in.
I understand that, but the partnership can be have a manufacturing company, as JCB do in India, but also bring the intellectual property side of things and have that partnership with British companies as well. Just because you're partnering with another country doesn't mean that you're not manufacturing in your own country. I think that's important.
Transfer technology, which is where the problem arises with UK a lot of the time. Yes.
I think the world desperately needs a leader for climate change, and I have my hopes pinned on Modi. And he's thinking about it. And at COP26, if we go back a year, COP27 has been a bit of a flop. But at COP26, Modi announced lots of infrastructure, lots of support schemes for the island nations. He recognises that they are the first on the front line for climate disaster. So I think he will be a champion for climate change.
Yes, he committed to 2070 zero, isn't it? Am I right? In 2050.
Sorry?
2050 zero carbon he was expected to do earlier on. But it all with climate change, it all comes down to this climate finance. And with the COVID structure, nobody's able to keep up to that.
Well, green finance is a major part of the discussions around the free trade agreement. Quite clearly, if India is going to achieve its ambitious targets in terms of rollout of infrastructure, green hydrogen, etc., it is going to need substantial amount of funding. And it is looking forward to developing a relationship with the UK and with the city around green finance in order to take that forward.
And that, go on.
No, what I was going to say was that you mentioned the 2050 point, but I think that was actually a point where people said, here's a leader who is prepared to say, we're not going to reach it at that point, we're going to reach it at this point. And to be realistic about it. And I think that's back to the leadership point. Sometimes you have to say things that people may say, oh, we wish it had been different. But here's a man prepared to say, well, actually, we're not going to reach that, but we are definitely going to go for 2050.
No, but it is in a world where there is intensified energy crisis, dependency on a few countries for it, and therefore the struggle. COVID has impacted the economics so much. Where will this finance come from? In the meantime, we have already had floods in Pakistan so badly. How? Because it is going hand in hand. We see the climate crisis not going to wait for economy to be sorted out.
No, but I think Modi understands that companies play a role, and that governments now probably have less money than most of these multinationals and businesses, and recognises companies can be a solution, can provide the finance. And India implemented the CSR. I'm not saying it's going to completely eradicate some of the problems, but it's a starting point. where it's generating income for some of these green finance schemes. And we need companies to be part of the conversation. We can't just rely on a leader, one government. It has to be joined up thinking.
Yeah.
And he does see that.
What is the one thing you would want to see happen as under the leadership?
One, and we're down to one. I mean, I would like to see a closer relationship between India and, of course, I would say this, wouldn't I, the UK. I would like to see a burgeoning relationship. I see the seeds. I see the seeds that are there, and I think there was a very warm meeting between our Prime Minister and President Modi at the G20, and I think that we can build on that, and I think to have that relationship, the British Asian community here in the UK is becoming stronger. Their voice is being heard, and I think that influence here in the UK is a positive influence for good, and I think that relationship will grow. I very much hope that this is the case.
I would agree with what Baroness Foster says, because if you look, and we know the figures, that the number of UK companies who are operating in India, the number of Indian companies that are investing here is phenomenal. And we have recently seen in the COVID that the collaboration that can be achieved in AstraZeneca and the Serum Institute. So I actually believe that the free trade agreement has a role to play.
Yeah.
Many of the multinational companies, both Indian companies here and UK companies in India, don't necessarily need a free trade agreement. But who does is the small and medium-sized companies who will see it as a catalyst and a pathway into greater collaboration between our two countries. So absolutely I endorse what Baroness Foster said.
When do we realistically expect it, do you think? UK IBC must have played a lot of role in it, I'm sure.
I don't sit at the table. I'm pleased to say I don't sit at the table. But look, as I said, my intelligence, and I'm sure Baroness Foster is far more attuned to this than I am. That's called the hospital pass. The chapters are coming together, and a March deadline is not unrealistic. A Diwali deadline was unrealistic.
We should say holy deadline now. Holy deadline. There is a holy which does not very much recognize you as much, but holy also comes around in March and April, so let's say. Sangeeta, your one point that you'd like India to achieve in G20.
Climate change, for sure.
Climate change what?
Yeah, I want India to make some really tough decisions and force some of the developed nations to stick to their agreements, and to support more of the southern, the developing world that needs the support of the rich nations. I want Modi to push that. I think we need that. Otherwise, nothing's going to be achieved. And we're going to have COP28. We're going to be discussing the same things again. And India knows this. The UN climate change report that was published in March, 45% of Indians by 2025 will have no access to water.
Yes, it's at every
35
level.
million Indians who live on the coastal regions will be underwater. So India knows that climate change is a big threat.
Oh, they absolutely recognize it. They don't know what other countries do or the funds happen. India does recognize that. And there is a challenge there as well, mind. But still, there is a proper recognition of that.
And so with that recognition to push other nations to do more.
Okay. Very quickly, I'm winding up now.
Yeah.
What was the image like? Rishi Sunak meeting Modi. Very similar looking people. Very different countries.
You could say that.
Similar.
I'm not sure I can say that.
Looking people of different countries.
Yes.
Amazing image.
No, it is, and I mean, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that it was an absolutely seminal moment when Rishi Sunak took over as Prime Minister of the UK.
I felt very emotional.
I know you did.
Yeah. What is it? He is a British. He looks like us, but he is a British. What did it make you feel
Proud.
to be?
It made me feel proud, and I also thought of my parents. My parents who came here in the 60s never ever thought they would see an Indian Prime Minister.
Indian origin,
Indian origin,
but British. Yes, we
We'll
have
never
to
see that at
accept
number
it.
10. Yes, not. I don't think we see him as being Indian, but just somebody who looks like us.
Yes, it makes a difference to the aspirations of the people, I guess. Anyway, it's great because he is not doing anything to represent where there's so much hoo-ha. He's so British that British.
I was on a TV program in which you sit there and you listen to the previous person. And it's Shashi Tharoor.
Oh,
I love Shashi Tharoor.
And he was making the point that, okay, fine, you're proud of his origins, but actually he's going to fight for Britain as hard as Prime Minister.
Oh, yeah. And he should.
I wanted to.
I should. Of course he should.
Yes.
And that's his job.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, I feel personally, it's very hard for him. It is, and he's going to make, and he is making every effort not to be recognized completely as an Indian. He's not an Indian. That's what I keep saying. He's a British.
Yes.
He's a Prime Minister of Britain. He has to fight for Britain. He must.
Yes,
He will be
It's a bit like cricket.
proud
Yeah.
and let down if he doesn't.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
But if I can bring in what we're doing in Together UK Foundation, I've met so many people from a British Asian background, and they are all very strongly British, and they want to promote the UK as a whole. I mean, that's important to them, and that's why so many people are wanting to be involved with our foundation and wanting to support us.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much on that note, all of you. And one hopes that the presidency that India is taking over of G20 comes out in shining color, not only for them, but in general for everybody, especially climate change and climate crisis. The word sometimes is sort of loathsome. So much has been said about it, but not a lot has been done about it. And I hope that's what happens. Please do write into me on chaichat@outlook.com, your feedback. And it's always a great conversation. Also, Chai Chat now is on Facebook, and I'm always on Twitter @Lavina Tandon. Thank you, take care, and God bless.